Welcome to DRS Zone. Today we're doing a deep dive into the technical maze that is Formula One's 2026 regulations.
Yeah, it's coming up fast. First cars are, what, less than 4 months away from hitting the track?
Exactly. And the first designs we're hearing about, well, they are extreme. It really makes you ask.
Is it genius? Or is it, fundamentally flawed?
That's the core question. We're seeing these huge variations already.
And it all spins out from one central change, really. The new engine formula is laser-focused on maximizing energy recovery.
Right, that power split. Roughly 50-50 between the old V6 combustion engine and the battery power.
A massive shift.
So today we'll look at some really wild rear brake designs, what this means for the drivers, it's intense, and why team simulations are, frankly, all over the place.
And it's fascinating, isn't it, how just one component, the rear brakes, kind of reveals the entire philosophy behind these new rules. The risk appetite.
Okay, let's unpack that first big clue then. It's coming from the F1 brake supplier. They mentioned seeing requests for, quote, extreme designs on the rear axle.
Yeah, specifically some teams, not all, mind you, are asking for rear brake discs that are just tiny, really small diameter, very thin, way smaller than current specs.
So why would they do that? It has to link back to the engine changes, right? The electrical side.
Absolutely. It's all about the MGUK, the motor generator unit kinetic. It harvests energy when the car slows down.
And that's getting a huge power boost from, what, 120 kilowatts now?
To a massive 350 kilowatts. I mean, think about that in horsepower terms. It's like going from 160 horsepower of regen to almost 470 horsepower.
Wow. Just from the K unit.
Exactly. So the thinking behind these tiny brakes is, well, if you have that much power working to slow the car down electrically.
He might not need much physical braking on the rear axle.
Pretty much. The energy recovery system could be so powerful it does most of the work. The physical brake becomes almost secondary.
So for the driver, what does that actually feel like? They might be, basically not using the brake pedal for the rear wheels?
In many situations, yeah. Or maybe just a dab in certain corners. It's relying almost entirely on the regen.
But hang on, there's still a safety rule, isn't there? Something about minimum brake force.
Ah, yes. Good point. The regulations do mandate that the system must be able to produce a minimum of 2,500 newton meters of braking torque at each rear wheel without electrical assistance.
Okay, so there's a physical backup?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The safety net, the brakes have to exist and function. But for the teams going aggressive, these tiny brakes signal they're designed as just that, a backup, not the primary way to slow down.
And this is where that genius or flawed thing really hits home, isn't it?
Totally.
Because going small saves weight. Maybe up to 6 kilos, which is huge when you're chasing that, 772 kilo limit?
Roughly, yeah. Weight is always critical.
But if your energy harvesting calculations are wrong, if you don't recover as much energy as you planned,
then you're in big trouble. Those tiny brakes won't cope. They'll overheat, fail. It's not just poor performance, it's a safety nightmare. And you'd need a complete redesign, fast, a massive gamble early on.
So connecting this to the driver again, the whole way they drive has to change, right?
Profoundly different, yeah. The muscle memory is just gone.
We're hearing about way more lift and coast on the straights, much more extreme than just saving fuel now.
Right, lifting off the throttle way earlier to let the MGUK do its thing, harvest that energy.
And even talk of premature downshifting, just to spin the K unit faster.
Exactly. Anything to maximize recovery heading into the braking zone. It turns driving into this constant energy management puzzle.
Sounds exhausting. One team apparently has a whole working group just training drivers for this.
Yeah, they believe the drivers who can really wrap their heads around managing energy deployment and harvesting lap after lap while racing, they'll have a serious edge.
So it requires this extra sort of brain capacity.
Absolutely. Think Formula E, where the electric motor does so much of the braking. Now add F1 speeds and complexity.
It's a massive cognitive load.
And adaptability is key. Remember the start of the current rules. Guys like Verstappen and Leclerc got on top of the new braking demands really quickly.
Yeah, while others, even someone like Hamilton, admitted it took them longer to feel comfortable.
Exactly. Now multiply that challenge.
Yeah.
If you mess up the harvesting phase, you don't just lose energy for the next straight.
You also cook those tiny rear brakes because you needed them more than you planned.
Precisely. It's all interconnected.
Okay, let's take a quick pause here in our deep dive. If you're watching this on the DRS Zone channel, thanks so much for joining us. If you like getting straight to the facts, cutting through the noise, please do hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. All right, back to it. So, these extreme ideas, tiny brakes. What's the ripple effect? You mentioned simulation chaos.
Oh, yeah. It gets really interesting here. All this technical diversity, teams trying different approaches, it's throwing the simulations way off, especially aero and tires.
How far off are we talking?
Well, the early data shared with the tire supplier, it suggests downforce levels could vary by as much as 30% between teams right now.
30%? That's enormous.
It is. And
Yeah.
translating that to performance, the lap time predictions are apparently spread across a 4-second range.
4 seconds. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the gap from the front to the very back of the grid normally.
Exactly. We haven't seen this level of uncertainty in preseason sims for a very, very long time.
So why such huge gaps? Is it just some teams are way ahead, others way behind?
Partly that, sure, some are better prepared, but it's also teams developing in secret, right? Each pursuing their own genius's interpretation of the rules. Maybe one bets heavily on aero, another goes all in on battery performance and low drag.
Before the inevitable copying starts once they see each other's cars.
Exactly. It's the genius or flawed dilemma playing out in isolation right now.
And this uncertainty must be a nightmare for Pirelli, the tire supplier.
Huge headache. Because the 2026 car basically has two personalities, right? Low drag mode for straights, high downforce mode for corners thanks to active aero.
Okay.
But the real killer for the tires is where the peak load happens. It's completely different.
How so? Where does the maximum stress hit the tire now?
Historically, peak vertical load is usually mid-corner or corner exit. But in 2026, because of that required lift and coast, and when the movable aero switches modes, the maximum load is predicted to hit about 300 meters before the corner entry.
Wait, say that again? 300 meters before the turn. How does that work?
Okay, picture it. You're flat out, you lift off early to harvest energy, then you hit the brakes, and at the same time the active aero flicks to high downforce mode.
Ah, okay. So you get deceleration plus a sudden slam of downforce hitting the car.
Bingo. It's like dropping a massive invisible weight onto the car at high speed just as you start braking. It hammers the tires with vertical load at a completely new point on the circuit.
Right.
That's the single most critical condition they have to design the tire for.
Wow, okay. That's a fundamental change.
And then add in that the tires are also getting narrower physically to cut drag.
Right.
And the whole shift from relying on hot friction brakes to relying more on energy harvesting, that messes with tire temperature cycles too. It's complicated.
So with all this going on, smaller brakes, maybe less peak downforce overall in the corners, are the cars actually going to be slower?
Well, it's a bit of a paradox. Yes, they'll likely be slower through the corners because the base level of downforce is being reduced by the rules.
Okay.
But they should be significantly faster in a straight line. That low drag mode plus the massive kick from the battery deploying energy out of the corners.
Right, that extra electric horsepower. We heard those maybe slightly optimistic claims early on about hitting 400 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, that was flagged as theoretical, but it shows the potential straight line speed increase they're aiming for.
So slower corners, faster straights.
Yeah.
What does the FIA think this nets out to in overall lap time?
Their current prediction, I believe, is that the 2026 cars will only be around 1 second per lap slower than the current car, at least initially, when the season starts.
Only 1 second after all these massive changes.
That's the prediction.
And for you listening, the key thing is that 1 second gap, or even that huge 4-second simulation gap we talked about, it won't last.
No way. Convergence in F1 is rapid, once teams see what works.
The FIA expects lap times will be right back where they are now by the second season 2027, as everyone figures out which genius's path was actually the right one.
So yeah, wrapping it up, the rules force maximum energy recovery. That leads to these risky tiny rear brakes on some cars, a really complex driving style focused on energy management.
And these huge differences in how teams are tackling the design challenge early on.
The winners in 2026 will be the teams who nail that tricky transition phase full throttle into the lift and coast harvesting zone, then managing that sudden peak load when the brakes and the high downforce aero hit simultaneously.
It's a massive engineering and driving challenge.
It really changes the mental game in the cockpit.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Given how much drivers will need to constantly manage energy deployment and harvesting, essentially turning F1 into a super fast, super complex version of Formula E, which current driver, maybe outside the established champions, do you think is best equipped mentally for that kind of intense, constant cognitive juggling?
That's a really good question. Something to definitely watch unfold.
Absolutely. Well, that's all we have time for on this deep dive into the 2026 rules here on DRS Zone. If you found this useful, please do hit that subscribe button and join us for the next one.